Welcome, everyone. My name is Julie Baldwin. I am one of the Associate Deans in the College of Humanities and Sciences here at the University of Montana. The College of Humanities and Sciences is the largest college at the University of Montana. We have 22 departments and offer over 88 undergraduate degrees, as well as 46 minors. A little bit about the college. Last year, we awarded over $750,000 in scholarships to both graduate and undergraduate students. Tonight, you're going to hear from faculty in two of our departments, environmental studies and psychology. In environmental studies, they place a large emphasis on experiential learning opportunities, both inside and outside of the classroom, including operating and teaching courses on our 10-acre peace farm that supports a community-supported agriculture program. Our psychology department is the largest in the state of Montana. It includes several faculty that are licensed, board-certified clinical and school psychologists, and offers many opportunities for undergraduate research. So regardless of your major and interest, you can spend your time here at the University of Montana exploring all that we have to offer. Tonight, you're going to hear from two of our faculty in psychology, Professor Alan Zalda-Petrie, and from environmental studies, Professor Rosalind Lapierre. And then undergraduate students, Matthew Sorensen from psychology and Maggie Gammons from environmental studies will be here. We also have two of our professional advisors, Alicia Gray, who serves psychology, and Sam Alvey, who serves environmental studies. And then we also have a student ambassador program within the college. And these students are representatives for the college and help us with all of our outreach and recruiting events. Check out our Facebook page for more information there. But Kat Jackson, who's an English major, and Carolyn Kane, who's a biology major, are going to join us. So we're going to have the presentations by the faculty and students first, followed by the advisors, and then the ambassadors. There'll be a Q&A after each section, and I'd encourage you to use the Q&A feature in the bottom of your Zoom screen. And you can just type your questions in there and we'll get to them. And so now I will turn it over to our faculty and students. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Julie, for the great introduction. And tonight, one of the topics we wanted to talk about in general and talk about how our programs and the College of Humanities and Sciences thinks about this is that our topic tonight is looking at life in the Anthropocene. And one of the things that I'm going to ask the students first is, what is the Anthropocene and why does it matter?
By students, do you mean,
I mean Maggie?
So the
Maggie and Matt.
The Anthropocene is what we're living in now. It's a geologic era where humans are the driving force in shaping our environment.
What about you, Matt?
Yeah, and I'd say that being aware of the fact that we are living in like an age that is primarily shaped by humans, I think it's important to sort of just be aware of, the impacts that we have on the planet. And it's just kind of like like every other epoch, I think is what they're called, is largely been shaped by environmental forces and stuff. And so I think it's sort of this whole shift into kind of becoming more self-aware as a species and realizing that our behaviors have an impact on our environment, especially when there are billions of us.
One of the things that we do in the College of Humanities and Sciences, and that we do in our two programs that we're sharing today, is we think about these big questions, right? We think about and talk about these big questions, like what is the Anthropocene and why does it matter to us? And we try to address these questions not just by taking classes, but also by providing a lot of different opportunities where students are allowed to think about these questions, but also try to think about some really good solutions to the solutions that we have as humans living on this earth. So although when we use a word like the Anthropocene, which is really a word that was created within the field of science, it really does impact sort of whether we are thinking about psychology or whether we're thinking about environmental studies and what our students are learning and talking about. One of the things that I think that is really interesting about talking about these big questions is that it does allow an opportunity for students to go out and look at both problems and solutions in the world that we live in. And I just want to ask Maggie really quickly. Maggie got a great opportunity a couple of years ago to spend time in Vietnam, where they were looking at and asking some of these big questions and trying to think about both looking at, again, the problem, but also thinking about solutions.
Yeah, so I got to go to Vietnam with the Environmental Studies program in partnership with the Mansfield Library in 2018. And we traveled to the Mekong Delta, which is southern Vietnam. It's this really large piece of land where a lot of people live, and it's also one of the most threatened areas on Earth in terms of climate change. The entire delta is predicted to be covered by water by the end of the century. So they have some really pressing problems to solve in that area. And so in one sense, it was really eye-opening and humbling for me to realize all the people I met were soon to be, well, maybe not them, but their children would be displaced by the end of this century. And in a large part, that's due to what rich countries like the United States have done in terms of climate change. So it was just really dramatic to see this landscape and envision it being covered in water. So that was really, really impactful for me, but also getting to talk to people there about how they're going to address climate change. And in Vietnam, people aren't really afraid of talking about these problems. A lot of farmers are really informed about the science behind climate change and really kind of pragmatic and realistic that like this is a huge issue that they're going to deal with. So in terms of solutions, we talked to a lot of different NGOs, non-governmental organizations, and sort of citizen-led initiatives to fight for better legislation and like international policies regarding climate change, but also, empower farmers to make changes, adapt to the changing environment, to use their resources a little bit more carefully, and also just to sort of bolster a sense of understanding and adaptability in the face of these changes.
Yeah, when we're talking about the Anthropocene, there's always a focus on what humans have done to change or modify the environment to better suit what our purposes are. Good or bad, it doesn't matter. It's still part of what we're talking about. And in most of the behavioral sciences, we recognize that, and we also look at it as being a recursive process too. Not only do we change the environment, but by changing the environment, we change the animals that live there. And so in psychology, we do a lot of investigations really broadly on how the environment influences us after we've already made the change to the environment. And, we talk about them as problems in many instances. They're not always problems, though. Sometimes they're changes in the environment that positively impact us. The ones that we spend a lot of time talking about, though, are the ones that negatively impact us, and for good reason. But, even something as simple as, for example, the research that I do, I look at a lot of psychopharmacological contaminants. So drugs that people take for psychological disorders. And that's interesting in itself, but for me at least. But then I look at it in terms of there's a lot of it that ends up back in the waterways. And then there are fish that absorb those contaminants. And then there are animals, well, there are fish that eat those fish that absorb the contaminants. And then there are animals that eat the fish. And then there are animals that eat the animals that eat the fish. And then there's us somewhere along the way, typically, that eat those animals. And so, it's this big recursive process where we are manipulating the environment and then it's manipulating us. And so, quickly, just to give you an idea, everybody probably knows what Prozac is. It's a drug that we use to treat depression. And I can tell you that there is Prozac in the river right out here in front of us. There's a beautiful river that runs through here called the Clark Fork. It's the Clark Fork of the Columbia River. I like to say that I grew up on the Columbia River in Washington, and then I ended up moving here to live on the Columbia River again, just farther upstream. And there's Prozac in that stream. There's Prozac in the fish that are out there. There's Prozac in the animals out there. And then, it ends up everywhere, even in the large body of fresh water under the Antarctica. There's Prozac. And so, we look at all of these sorts of things and how there's this kind of circular impact process. So, the students here, they get to participate in all of these kinds of research. And so I'm going to let Matt talk to you just a little bit about what his experience has been in terms of being involved in faculty research here at the University of Montana.
Yeah, thank you, Alan. So when I first started, I kind of took this big, long, meandering path, and I wasn't really sure exactly, what I was interested in, what I kind of wanted to focus, pretty much the rest of my life in doing. And so one thing that really helped me with at UM was just such the broad array of different research opportunities that are here. I used to think that psychology was, there was some differences, but it was all largely just kind of one field. But I was able to start my sort of research experience in experimental psychology and with Dr. Yoonhee Zhang, and she was all about memory and cognition and kind of how all these different processes, play on each other. And then I ended up, after a few semesters of that, I ended up moving into Dr. Duncan Campbell's lab, and he primarily does research with stigma and depression. And I even talked to my social psychology professor, Luke Conway, and told him, oh my gosh, I've put so much effort into this whole clinical psych thing, but this social psych research, it's so interesting. And he's like, well, don't worry. I mean, it's much easier for a clinical psychologist to do research in social psych than it is for a social psychologist to do research in clinical psych. He says, so don't fret, just, keep following your path, and, there'll still be plenty of opportunities if you want to do social psychology research later on. You'll definitely have plenty of options to do that. And it's actually kind of a bittersweet that I'm going to be ending things here soon, and I didn't get a chance to be part of all the research labs that were here. But yeah, some of those other ones would include Dr. Brian Cochran. He does research on substance abuse issues and does research into elements of sexual and gender minority health, and just all sorts of different stuff. And UM's really good when it comes to that. There's a lot of different opportunities.
Well, like I said earlier, I mean, one of the things that, again, the College of Humanities and Sciences and our programs are really interested in is looking at, again, some of these big questions and answering them in various ways, whether it's through research, and doing research through labs, but also doing, again, research through traveling to other countries to see what they're up to and what you can learn there. But we also look very locally. And so one of the things I'd like Maggie to share with you is sort of her experiences just working right here in the city of Missoula, an opportunity to work at, for example, at the Peas Farm, which is one of the University of Montana's 10-acre farm where students get to really address some of these big questions again, but really at the small kind of local level.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about Missoula and the things I've been involved with here because I just love this town so much. And the environmental studies program took me to Vietnam, but more importantly, it kept me here because when I came to I wasn't really sold on going to college at all. I wasn't really sure where I wanted to go, and I ended up here because for me, I grew up in Butte, so it wasn't too far to come here, and I was just trying it out. And I immediately fell in love with the environmental studies program. And one of the first experiences that I got to have with the sort of out of classroom education that EVST really focuses on was working at the Peas Farm. So the Peas Farm is a small student-run vegetable farm. It's all organic and sustainable with an emphasis on regenerative agriculture. And it's also, it's a demonstration for, it's a demonstration for sustainable farming. It's also an educational space. So I was there as a university student, but there were also high school students there and a bunch of like grade school students who were all learning. We were all learning together. So it was a really beautiful intergenerational space. And it was also outdoors, which was just awesome. I got to spend a whole summer working on this farm and really becoming connected to Missoula and the community here. And also the food that we were growing was feeding Missoulians. It was feeding members of Missoula's residence homes for retired folks. So it just felt really good. I would totally recommend that experience to anyone who comes to regardless of if you're in the environmental studies major.
Thanks, Maggie. So yes, I mean, I think that one of the great things, again, about the College of Humanities and Sciences, but also, the University of Montana, is that we really are kind of uniquely situated to address a lot of these big questions that we think about. I think that because we are sort of right smack dab in the center of the United States, but we're also have this global reach, that we address and think about these questions again at the large level, but also, as you heard from Alan, they also think about these questions about the Anthropocene from a very local level and doing a lot of research right here with the different faculty who are doing research with their students. And so, there's a lot of different opportunities here for student research, for working in the community, for doing international travel, in addition to taking classes. Alan, did you want to add anything to that?
Sure, I'll say that, this isn't unique to Missoula or the University of Montana, but it's an important experience for students. If you're interested in a particular area, it doesn't have to be environmental studies or psychology, but, it's important for you to go out and get those experiences in the community or, in the actual area that you'd be working, because I think that a lot of times folks have ideas about what they're interested in, but they don't always know exactly how well it matches up with what you'd actually be doing. And so, if I have someone that says, I want to work with children and adolescents, I'm like, you need to go out and do some internship work. And we have a whole list of agencies that we work with that will give you that experience. And then, if you want to work with children and adolescents and you want to be a therapist or something like that, what you have to know is that, that work is all done after school and in the early evenings. And, the question I always ask then is, Does that fit with what your personal goals in life are? Will that work for you? And, sometimes people go out there and they work with these kids, or they work with emotionally disturbed, really young kids, and they just say, it's breaking my heart. I can't do it. And, I'll be honest, it breaks my heart every time when I see that. And I knew that I couldn't do that kind of work. But some people are well suited for it. And so this is a way for you to get out there and look to see if you're well suited for it, at least right now in your life. The thing I always tell people is what you can do right now and what you feel like you can and cannot do right now may not be the same thing in 4 years or 5 years. To be honest, I'm still looking for what I really want to do. And so, this is not a static state. This is ever changing. And these experiences in the community help you learn about what you're good at, but also what you really like doing.
So I'm going to turn my video on here and just moderate some of the questions that we're getting from the audience. So one of the first questions is, can you tell me, I think this is directed to the students, how you feel your educational experience at UM has prepared you for your future? Not a softball one right off the bat. Maggie or Matt, does one of you want to try that one?
Sure, I can jump right in. So I'm about to graduate, so I think about this a lot, and I'm thinking a lot about what I've learned at UM in the past 5 years that I've been here. And I think one of the biggest ways that my education has helped me prepare me for the future is that it's made me a really confident, it made me more confident interacting with the community, because in high school, and I feel like in my first years in university, I was really focused on my studies, and it's all very like book learning. But then once I got into more programs with environmental studies, and I actually also declared another major in, that's my cat, in biology. It gave me a lot more experience just interacting with the community. And so I feel like it's not like I'm about to leave school and go to the real world. It feels like I've been part of the real world this whole time. And I'm not really afraid of that aspect of the future, thanks to all the different things I got to do at UM.
Yeah, so in my case, as I mentioned earlier, since my primary goal is to hopefully conduct psychological research in the future, apart from, having all the different opportunities and the different faculty members that are producing, the different research, I'd say that the education I've gained in psychology, and I'm also doing another major in communication studies. And I'd say that basically from what I've learned, I've noticed that as I've progressed over the course of these last couple of years, they've really helped me in ways that I didn't really expect they would, in my personal relationships. I sort of always figured that going to school was, just going to help me get a job and, just kind of help me vocationally in the future. But, a lot of the insights from psychology and communications has helped me, be more generous with my attributions of others' behavior, saying, oh, so-and-so is acting this way probably because they're stressed or tired or something like that. And then the communications, I've felt pairs in with that nicely, is because, it helps me to be able to communicate support for other people and, navigate conflicts when they happen. And so there's just been all sorts of practical things that I've gained from my education at UM that really didn't expect to get at first.
So there's no more questions in the Q&A for you guys. So I think we'll move to our professional advisors now. And we'll see you guys in a bit, perhaps at the end. But thank you so much for your contributions so far. So we're going to now talk to Alicia and Sam. Maybe we'll go ladies first, if you don't mind, Sam.
Nope, I don't mind.
Oh, dang it. We had this conversation before, and I was like, Sam, you're going to go first. I would say of the two of us, like Sam has this ability to weave this big picture about professional academic advising. And so I am going to use my ladies option and defer to Sam.
You are so polite. Thanks, Alicia. So Alicia and I work together in the H&S Advising Center, and we actually started advising the same day, and at the start of the pandemic, and we were sent home, and so we've actually only seen each other in person on a couple of occasions. But that said, so I guess the way I would like to start is with a little story. So I was in the Peace Corps in West Africa in Niger, and when I came back from the Peace Corps, I had a grocery store experience that I think is probably a little bit akin to showing up to a university. So, we just had a lot of amazing explanations of a number of opportunities that exist at from faculty and students. And so when I returned from Niger, we ate millet for breakfast, millet for lunch, and millet for dinner. Millet as a porridge for lunch and with a sauce for dinner. And so when I walked into the grocery store, I grabbed a basket and I walked down and I headed towards the produce aisle thinking, that's where you start. So I grabbed some bananas and I looked around and I just thought there's a lot here. So I walked to the back of the store where there's often bread, and there was this huge panel of bread, all these choices to make. And I remember staring at it and thinking, which bread, right? Like, I don't know what to pick. And so I grabbed something. I walked a little further, and I was in the dairy aisle, and I thought, yogurt would go with my bananas. So I grabbed some yogurt and I headed for the check stand, and I got the heck out of there. And I think that sometimes coming to university is a bit like that experience, in that you are all of a sudden exposed to this tremendous number of opportunities. You've got your own interests, you've got your own goals, you've got this curriculum to kind of put together that even goes beyond your specific major. And so when we come in as academic advisors, is to assist you in that process of kind of seeking out the opportunities to identify and refine your life goals, to kind of think about who you want to be, what doors you want to be able to walk through as you get further through the process. And when I look back at some of the conversations, Matt used the saying, follow your path. He used the term opportunities. Alan used the opportunities. Maggie went to Vietnam and came back and worked on the peas farm and grew food for the local community. And she traveled from Butte, Montana, which, we think of Montana as this pristine place, and Butte has this massive Superfund site, this big hole that is full of copper-filled water. And then there's metal pollutants all the way down the Clark Fork River almost to Missoula. And so it's this amazing place that is kind of a dichotomy of things to live and learn in. And so we try and embrace that. So as the advisor for environmental studies, I certainly steer students towards any number of opportunities. And so it starts with your transition to college. So currently we will be assisting students in kind of making those first choices and navigating all of those crazy hurdles to actually be allowed to make your first choices. And so I think that is really our role, is to kind of be a facilitator and a conduit to get you to the mentors like Alan and Professor LaPierre, and to get you to experience the things that they can steer you towards to engage with, whether it be undergraduate research, whether it be a study abroad opportunity, whether it be an internship, whether it be a course that you had no idea even existed, right? And based upon an assessment of your interests, we might say, hey, how about this? What do you think? And, where do you want to go? And so I'm with that. I'm going to kind of turn it over to Alicia, who can fix anything I broke. And she is the excellent at talking about resources too. So, so I left those out kind of on purpose.
Oh, nice. So as you can see, like we have this very fantastic relationship. We collaborate with each other. I'm glad that Matt mentioned that he's also a double major with communication studies, because I wanted to talk about the fact that within our advising center there's 10 of us across H&S. So students who come in and they say, I'm going to be this major, and they have a really clear sense of what they want to be and who they want to be. Um, and then they go, oh, I took this course and it interested me in this other thing that was just kind of in the back of my head. And so within H&S, because we have this team of advisors, we can collaborate with each other to make a smooth transition if students are saying, oh, well, now I'm interested in this. So as Sam said, you're going to get this chance to sample things from a buffet. And it's our pleasure to help you sample those things. So if I hear a student, and as Sam said, we're welcoming students and talking them through the first choice of classes. When I talk with a student for the first time, I say, why psychology? What is it about it that interests you? And then from there, we can start to build course, the first semester of courses. And then each semester we talk again, and I say, okay, so what are you enjoying about your courses now? What are you not enjoying about your courses now? Because that also shines a light on where students want to be and the academic goals that they have. Just for a short story, I wanted to be in arts administration when I first started college, and then I ended up with sociology, anthropology, and now I'm an academic advisor. So we spin in all these different circles, and life changes us and changes what we want to be. And so having this advising team across the college has helped students feel that sense of continuity, even though they are changing themselves. And I would say that as far as resources go, it's while our titles are professional academic advisor, it is also our pleasure to serve as point of contact for students to connect you with other campus resources. So whether it's financial aid or the registrar's office or health services, like Curry Health Center has medical program and dental program and counseling, we serve as those connections to those points. We learn what resources are out there so that we can connect students there. And it looks like we have been asked a question. So the question is, what is one experience that you recommend every student seek out during their time in college? Oh, I'll have to think about that. Sam, do you have an immediate answer there?
I would say that I sort of go with, what is something that you haven't had access to that would stretch you some, that would that being part of this academic community and this place, you have a sort of a, what we always hope is a safe place to explore different ideas and opinions and ways of looking at the world. And so to experience something like that, and I often head towards cross-cultural experiences with that. Particularly the university is constructed in the Salish and Kootenai lands, and so there's sort of a specific attachment of the university to that, and I think that exploring some of that heritage of the place where you're going to spend 4 years of your life is a pretty incredible start. So
yeah, I would underscore that. Try something that you've never tried before. Get involved with a club that piques your interest. Get engaged with the community in which you live. So whether it's in Missoula or whether if that's too broad, get involved somehow with the campus itself, and find a way to build your own unique college story.
Yeah, it's your curriculum. And so that's one of the things that I don't think students realize when they first walk in, is that you've got some freedom of choices and you've got faculty mentors, you've got academic advisors, you've got people who will help you sort of construct that curriculum and experiences and things to engage with that will help you get, the skill sets and the competencies and the courage and the decision-making ability to go where you want to go when you're done. And that's kind of our job.
Yeah. Well, thank you to Sam and Alicia for that little insight into professional advising. I really appreciate you coming tonight. I'm going to hand it over now to Carolyn and to Kat, our two student ambassadors, to talk a little bit about their experience here. And as I've slightly learned my lesson, maybe I'll let one of the two of you guys figure out who's going to go first.
So we're just going to talk more generally about the College of H&S and our experiences in it. So I'll start out introducing myself. My name's Kat. I'm an English major and I'm originally from Wyoming. And I picked UM largely because of the area. I love Missoula. I love all of the opportunities it affords me, but also as an English student specifically studying creative writing, this is one of the best programs in the nation for it. I mean, it's a really impressive program with really impressive faculty. So that's kind of why I picked UM. If Caroline wants to go ahead.
Yeah, totally. Hi, my name's Caroline. I am a biology major with a concentration in field ecology, and I'm originally from northern Colorado, Fort Collins. And I chose because mostly of my major, kind of like Kat said, we have a really good program for what I'm studying, and just the complete accessibility to undergraduate research and like hands-on learning and things like that.
Yeah, so one of the advantages about and the College of H&S specifically is there's a really strong sense of community and small class sizes. I mean, most of my classes, there are, of course, the lecture halls where you have the bigger classes, but a lot of the class, I'd say the majority of the classes I've taken have been between 10 and 15 students. So you get a lot of one-on-one time with your professor and you have the opportunity to build really great mentorship relationships with them.
Yeah, kind of with that, because of the small size, you're really able to get involved in a lot of experiential learning, kind of regardless of your major. There's always some way you can get involved in something hands-on, whether it's in a lab doing research with professors or doing field work or just any type of experiential learning is so accessible. Your advisor can always help you with that, and there's always something you can do regardless of major.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's also a lot of tutoring resources that are free on campus. So there's a lot of support systems to help you succeed at For example, there's study jam groups for just about any subject that you can think of. The Writing Center will help you with any kind of essays or written work in general. And then there's also the Math Learning Center where you can go and get one-on-one tutoring for what you are specifically struggling with in your classes.
Yeah, along with that, the interdisciplinary nature of all of the majors here is incredible. You can minor in pretty much anything you can think of, or there's also certificate programs like the Global Leadership Program, things like that. And you can take classes inside and outside your major, just kind of whatever you'd like that help you kind of connect your major to anything that you're even interested in.
Yeah, absolutely. And also the food zoo is a great feature on campus. A lot of the food is actually grown on campus or locally. Like I know they mentioned the Peas Farm, a lot of our food comes from there, which makes it a more sustainable way of feeding a large student population, of course. But there's also a lot of accommodations for dietary restrictions. So if you're vegan or vegetarian or gluten-free or anything like that, there's a lot of ways for you to be accommodated in that.
Yeah, and kind of going on that on-campus life, the dorms here, I'm in one right now, are awesome. And during a non-COVID semester, they're an amazing way to meet friends. But even in COVID, they've done a really good job of facilitating like COVID-friendly events and stuff that people can join to be able to meet people. As long as like you get to choose your roommate. I don't know if that's for all colleges, but I think that's a really good opportunity people have. You have a little bit more say in what happens, and they're all fully furnished with beds and cabinets and stuff like that, and a desk. Along with that, I can talk a little bit about our outdoor recreation program. So our outdoor program is really good. We live in such an amazing place to have an outdoor rec program. And they offer trips like honestly anything you could think of. We have cross-country trips during the cross-country skiing trips in the winter, kayaking in the summer and early spring, rock climbing trips, like want to go on a run trips. They offer pretty much anything, and it's so much fun. You can learn new activities, and everyone's really friendly and very welcoming, which is really refreshing in the outdoor community.
Yeah, there's also the scholarship portal, which is really easy to use and allows you to find a lot of opportunities within the college to make school more accessible. And also there's a student club for everything. Like regardless of your interests, there are literally clubs for everything. If you're into like video games or fashion, or there's all kinds of cultural groups so that you can connect with people of your culture or learn about other cultures that you're interested in. So it's just, is a place that makes it really easy to find community and find like-minded people.
We have a question from the audience. Do you have to live on campus? Do you guys know the answer to that?
Your freshman year, they really encourage you to. I'm pretty sure they require it, but I recommend it wholeheartedly. I think there's no better way to meet people and really instill yourself in the campus culture. It's just the best way to do college, in my opinion. Like for me, it was just the best part.
Yeah.
And a follow-up. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, I'm a senior. I haven't been in the dorms in the last 3 years, but the friends that I made in the dorms are still some of my best friends. So.
I'll just add a piece onto that. There are exceptions. So if you live locally and you want to stay living with your family, you can seek an exception. So there are exceptions to living on campus. I will say that living on campus really does create a sense of community that you won't get if you live off campus.
Okay. Yearbook or scrapbooking clubs available?
Yep. Yeah, they're seriously, there's a club for everything. I know for a fact that there's some kind of, I'm not sure if they call themselves the yearbook club, but I know that there's something like that I've heard about.
I think Alicia's also going to share with you the full list of all student clubs that we have on campus. So you can take a look if you want. Can you tell me which is the best dorm?
I lived at Miller, so I'm going to vouch for Miller.
Right now, I live in Panzer, which is kind of like apartment style without the kitchen, kind of like a suite style. And it's pretty sweet. It just got renovated and it's really nice. So I'm a vouch for that also. And I don't think you can go wrong. I have friends that live in almost all the dorms and they all seem awesome.
Right on. Okay, so let's answer one more question. Let me see what we got here. What advice do you have for excelling in classes?
Talk to your professors. Even if you're not struggling, stop in at office hours. And especially if it's a class that you're really interested in, you are going to get so many opportunities through your professors because they want you to succeed and they want to help you grow your career. I mean, I have had professors that since my freshman year, I've consistently taken their classes because they've been such an impact on me, both personally and professionally.
Yeah, I second that. I think engaging with your professors and forming relationships with them is kind of the strongest way to excel in academics in general. Like they are here to help you and they're here to watch you excel and they want you they want you to thrive here. As well as just like kind of participating in class, I feel like is really good. The more discussions you can have with your peers and your professor, just the better your education will be all around.
Right on. So I'm going to ask this question and invite sort of any panelists who are on here who'd like to answer to go ahead and do so. Tell us a favorite memory of your time here on campus.
Carrie, I'm gonna go first. If you can pop my video back on, because I'm
so will.
Home here, but
you might have to introduce yourself, Dan. Because
yeah, I'll introduce myself. So I'm sorry I joined late. I was hosting another Zoom meeting while this one got started here, and so I joined late. My name's Dan Spencer. I currently serve as the director of the Environmental Studies program, and I'm going to embarrass Caroline because a favorite memory that I've had right now was actually our conversation just yesterday when we sat out on the Oval here. And Caroline's a student in one of my classes here on Earth Ethics, on environmental ethics. And it's a wonderful experience, but we're still under the COVID constrictions. So we have to wear masks and be socially distanced. But it was a beautiful day yesterday, and Caroline wanted to interview me for something. And so we got to sit out on the Oval together in the sunshine. And it was so delightful. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, Caroline. It was just so much fun. And I would say, I just left that up simply because, particularly in environmental studies, and this is true of many of the programs, that Maggie can talk about this or anybody else, but we're a very student-centered program. And I think I really appreciate what both Kat and Caroline said about how to excel in classes. Get to know your professors, because we want to get to know you as well. We really want you to succeed. And so this was the first unmasked conversation that Caroline and I have had. We had a class in the fall and a class in the spring. But it was a wonderful opportunity for us to just sit down and have a chance to really connect on other issues there. And Maggie and I traveled together to Vietnam, and we got to know each other well in those experiences there. But you'll have a lot of opportunities to get to know your professors inside and outside the classroom, and we genuinely are here for you. So those are most of my favorite memories involving interactions with students in different forms.
Great. Does anybody else want to weigh in? I'm just looking at all your faces to see if somebody has a brilliant memory they want to share.
I'll share a couple of memories. It's kind of unique for me because I'm an alumni of UM, and I liked it so much I stayed. It's been 35 years I've been here now, including my time as a student. And so I have some very fond memories from when I was a student. This will date me, but so does the white beard. But I remember seeing Stevie Ray Vaughan play here in what was the old Adams Field House a few months before he died in that aircraft accident. And when you go to sometimes when you go to concerts here, it's a real intimate experience, and that's exactly what that was. It's something that stuck with me my entire life. Another thing which was around the same time, we're right up against Mount Sentinel here, and there's an M relatively high up the hill. And in the fall, I remember climbing up the trail and sitting up there as the sun went down, watching over the city as the lights come on and the river is flowing. I mean, it's beautiful. And then as you see these shadows moving, it's deer moving across the hillside there. And, for me, it doesn't really get much better than that.
I can share a quick memory as well. So for a lot of my time here at the university, I've been involved with a student group called 1000 New Gardens. And we're a group that builds garden beds for people in Missoula for free. And our goal is to build 1,000. And so far we've built 250 around Missoula, either in people's backyards or for businesses. And I had a really great honor to be president of the club for the past 2 years. And even in COVID, we managed to make things happen. So last year when the restrictions went down, we couldn't do our usual, we call it our dig day. That's when we go and build garden beds for folks. So instead of doing our dig day, we ended up doing a plant giveaway. So we went to various farms around town and got all of their extra garden starts, and we just gave them away to people. And for me at the time, I hadn't seen another person in like a month because we had been on lockdown. So it was really it was so heartwarming to see all of a sudden hundreds of people coming to take our plants. They were so thankful. Every person that we talked to was saying how grateful they were for us doing that, because in the pandemic, a lot of folks were turning to gardening. So it just felt really good to be involved in that way. I was involved on the student group side of things, and then in the Missoula community side of things, and also working with plants, which is like my favorite thing ever. So that was one of my favorite memories.
Yeah, there's definitely a theme, an environmental theme here. It seems to like span across across everyone's experiences, and it's true for me too. I got to go hike up in the Mission Mountains with some of my friends, and it's indescribable. Some of these places that are just like 20 miles back on the tallest mountain range in Montana, and you can like see the curvature of the earth and stuff, and just those experiences will just be will be burned in my brain, because they're just so just really powerful experiences. And Montana is very unique in the sense that like a lot of urban environments, you can't really go out and you can't really see that stuff, and Missoula's like at this perfect location where Missoula's a city and it's got the college and it got a lot of urban stuff, but then you just go 20 minutes and you are completely in the wilderness. And this Missoula will probably be one of my favorite places for the rest of my life.
So I have a memory of the first day that I started working at the University of Montana. It was August, which I've lived in Orlando, where it's bloody hot in August. And then it was just kind of this mild, lovely, sunny, blue sky day in Montana. And I'm walking to my new job, and I hit the oval, and it's this beautiful green space in the middle of campus, and it's just gorgeous. And I stopped and I was like, I get to work here. This is pretty cool. And the oval is one of those places where when things are not going quite right, when I've received an email that I don't want to respond to right away, I'll take a lap around the oval. And then if I haven't solved the world's problems by that point, I will take another lap around the oval. So the oval is this lovely green space right in the middle of campus to explore. And sadly, I'm working from home for the last year, so I don't have that oval, and my family looks at me funny when I like charge around the house. But so I miss the oval. I love the oval. I love our campus. I love its just the green spaces. And then there's this kind of beautiful thing that happens when it's been cold and snowy, and the snow has now melted. And I love snow, but when the snow has finally melted, and then you start to see people throwing discs on the oval, and they're riding their bikes, and they're walking their dogs, and it's just kind of this lovely, like, oh, spring has arrived.
Yeah, you can really you smell it in the air whenever spring hits. And correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't U of M's campus featured in a magazine, just a year or two ago, as as the U.S. one of the U.S.'s most scenic campuses? Does anybody remember that? Well, if it's not true, then it definitely should be.
Yeah, I think it was Outdoor Magazine, if I'm not mistaken on that.
Okay, awesome.
Before my time, Matt, but you could be right. I'll have to look that up. Does anybody else have a favorite memory they'd like to share?
I can go. One of mine is I'm on an intramural soccer team this semester, and those games are so much fun. I feel like intramurals are really underrated. They're just so much fun because you're supposed to be really bad, and then it's just when you don't care, it's so fun. And everyone comes and watches. All your friends are there. It's just a blast.
All right. Well, we are almost at the end of our time, and we seem to be at the end of the moments that we'd like to share with all of you. Thank you for joining me and us tonight to talk about H&S, and we look forward to seeing you on campus in the fall. Do come and look all of us up when you arrive. Thank you again, and good night.